Good evening, everybody. It is 7 o'clock on Monday, February 6th, 2023, and we'll call this meeting of the Sault Ste. Marie City Commission to order. If we could have a roll call, please.
Mayor Gary,
Here.
Commissioner Bauer,
Here.
Commissioner Baspis Rath,
Here.
Commissioner Habusta,
Here.
Commissioner Marble, Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Rubenstein.
Here.
Commissioner Marble did call, and he's got the bug that is going around, so if anybody would like to excuse him. It's moved to
Support.
excuse him. Moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
He is excused. If everybody that can stand, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mayor comments and general announcements. I have a couple of comments this evening. Certainly on behalf of the City of Sault Ste. Marie, we would like to give condolences to the family of Jerry and Tara Weaver and the entire Escanaba community. They were tragically killed in a car accident on the way to their son's basketball game here in Sault Ste. Marie. They left behind 3 children. There were responses from all over the UP and beyond of compassion, caring, and support, and it certainly shows the power of unity. Also like to give condolences to the family of Phil Burton. Phil was president and part owner of Burton Excavating. Phil was a good community citizen, good friend to many. In 2010, he received Sault Ste. Marie's Life Saving Award for rescuing an elderly lady who was unable to walk from a smoke-filled house that was thought to be on fire. Phil was the son of Joe and Marilyn Burton, who served with us on the commission, and wife Bettina and 4 brothers. So we certainly wish condolences and prayers to both families. On to good things. I-500. Last weekend was the 54th running of the I-500 race. I know that most of us were able to attend. Certainly is a long, fun-filled week. We want to extend our congratulations and thanks to the hundreds of volunteers, the I-500 committee, the Lions Club, parking committees, hospitality committee, everybody. I just don't even know how they put it together. We all went very great. It's a well-orchestrated event. I know there are some that are probably not followers of snowmobile racing, but this event has a huge economic impact on our area. It's one of the biggest attractions that we have in Sault Ste. Marie. It attracts people to hotels, restaurants, retail establishments, and the one thing that some people probably don't think of, it keeps your water rates a little bit lower because they're a huge water user, and they do pay for the water that they spray on the track. I also want to say thanks on behalf of the City Commission to the City Police and Fire Department. Stopped in several times to visit, and it certainly was nice to see every single law enforcement agency working together, walking together, to see a Sioux Fire ambulance and a Kinross ambulance together, and to see the collaboration that we have to bring together a good event and a safe event for the participants and spectators. Last but not least, I want to thank CVB for promoting the event. They put tons of money into media, and this year, again, for the second year in a row, they put together a legislative event so that legislators would come to town. And this year we had the CEO and president of Michigan Economic Development Corporation, which is a huge thing. We also had Dave Lorenz, who's Mr. Pure Michigan. We had our state rep, Neil Frisky. We had Senator John DeMoose. We had former Senator Wayne Schmidt. We had representatives from our federal senators' offices. One couldn't make it because of the weather. And we had the chairperson and Unit 1 directors of the tribe, and we had a lot of other dignitaries. This is a great opportunity for us to talk about projects that we've done, projects we need to do, funding that we will need, and collaboration and partnerships that we need to do. So hats off to the CVB for putting that together and letting us make a whole weekend out of the I-500 race. We will move on now into item C, which is public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make any comments at all on any of our scheduled agenda items? So anybody that would like to make any comments on scheduled agenda items? If not, we'll move into item D, which is the consent agenda. Welcome back from the south, Deputy City Manager Robin Troyer.
Thank you, Mayor. Under the consent agenda, 1, approval of the City Commission meeting minutes of January 16th, 2023. Item 2, acceptance of the Airport Advisory Board meeting minutes of December 8th, 2022. Item 3, acceptance of the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority meeting minutes of December 13th, 2022. Item 4, acceptance of the Economic Development Corporation meeting minutes of December 13th, 2022. Item 5, acceptance of the Parks and Recreation Board meeting minutes of November 29th, 2022. Item 6, acceptance of the Police and Fire Pension Board meeting minutes of December 21st, 2022. Item 7, acceptance of the Tax Increment Finance Authority 3 meeting minutes of December 13th, 2022. Item 8 is confirmation of mayor's appointment to the Economic Development Corporation. Item 9 is confirmation of the mayor's appointment to the Local Development Finance Authority. Item 10 is confirmation of the mayor's appointment to the Local Development Finance Authority. Item 11 is reappointment of Stephanie Petro to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Item 12 is consideration of Police and Firefighter Pension Corrective Action Plan, monitoring submission and additional funding budget amendment. Item 13 is consideration of transfer of approximately 915 square feet of land located at the northeast corner of the West Portage Avenue Bridge. Item 14 is consideration of an amended Uniform Guidance Policies, Federal Awards, Policies, and Procedures. And item 15 is approval of the consent agenda items as presented.
Thank you, Deputy City Manager. Is there any commissioner that would like an item further explained or removed for individual consideration on the consent agenda? Seeing none, Commissioner Bauer.
So moved that we approve tonight's consent agenda.
Support.
It has been moved and supported to approve the consent agenda. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on into item F, which is communications. City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To start off our marathon of presentations tonight, we have an update regarding the poller that was requested at the last commission meeting from Commissioner Miller. Sorry. I'm over here. I know. Sorry. Commissioner Miller, Director Perrin and I sat down and we put together a PowerPoint for you guys. Bonnie, if you want to throw it up on the screen really quick. If my computer will load. There we go. All right. So, as I was mentioning, Commissioner Miller wanted an update on some of the issues that we've had with the poller this year, including where we're at with the concessions. So, just for some of the commissioners that may not know, just a little bit about the poller. The poller was originally built in 1939. There's been some upgrades, including mechanical and cosmetic. Cosmetic being about 2014 with roof boards, glass, rocker rooms. The mechanical upgrades were most recently done in about the 1980s. So that's really everything that we utilize to make the ice. We'll get into that in a little bit more. The major users that we currently have at the poller include the Hiawatha Skating Club, Sioux Eagles, Sioux Michigan Hockey Association, Sioux Indians, various leagues and tournaments that come up here throughout the season. And then staff has public skates open to the public. So we did have a few issues this year, kind of starting off from the beginning of the season going to where we're at now. One of the one that happens quite often when we start up the system due to the time that we started up is we had a lot of humidity and condensation issues build up in the poller. So that did result in a canceled game. The issue with that really is that we're still in the summer months when we start trying to make ice, and it forms a lot of humidity and condensation to the point where there was a game canceled this year because the ice was flooded so bad with the ice. There are some effects to the building from the amount of humidity and condensation on it. You'll see little red spots on the ice throughout the rink. It's not necessarily blood from all the fights. That's from the rust within the rafters coming down. It's unknown what kind of issues are above the rafters, We've been meaning to take a look at it, but we're not ready to turn that rock over yet. So, pond startup as well. We had a motor on the condensing tower short out. We did fix that one. We have a new motor that we put in there, and we have a backup one now that did result in a game cancellation. We had the Zamboni catch fire, which was kind of a fluke issue on that one. We did have an ammonia leak earlier, a few weeks ago. There was 3 days of shutdown within the plant, roughly about 30 hours. The ice condition did deteriorate during that time. That resulted in 2 Hiawatha and 2 Sioux Michigan Hockey Association cancellations, as well as 3 Eagle practices and a makeup game that they currently had scheduled. So we had some cancellations due to that. One of the things that we want to highlight is that we did have a brine leak in the concrete floor. So if you're not 100% sure or don't know, the ice rink is a big cement floor, but underneath it is a series of supplies and returns. Where's Tyler at, so I can see? Supplies and returns, correct? Yep, steel pipe. How many miles of it is it? 6 miles of steel pipe that run underneath that concrete floor. That's what takes all the cooling material and keeps the floor cool so we can make ice. We did have a leak with that system. We did temporarily fix it. We used a product that's kind of a quick seal, something like you'd use in your radiator if your radiator was leaking. But we do have a couple of pictures just to kind of show you where we're at. So this is underneath the benches on the Zamboni side of the Polar. You can see kind of the bubbles. You can't see my mouse. You can see the bubbles kind of in the middle of the screen there. That's from the leak coming in. The staff built this dam to kind of funnel the water away from the wood. The next picture, you can kind of see that runoff. But we were running at one point, we were having to add in about 100 gallons of brine throughout the day just to keep up with the amount of brine that had to be in the system because of the leak. Fortunately, the quick seal did seal everything off. I think Tyler said within an hour or so, everything was sealed up. But it is just a Band-Aid. It's nothing that's going to be long-term for us. But that does just kind of indicate some of the conditions within our system. So the major components of the Polar, what we've got that makes ice, the boilers, chilling tower, chiller barrel, compressors, various pumps, brine and water, concrete floor, and supply return pipes. And some of these items we'll go into, and a lot of these are coming in from CIP requests that Tyler put in for this year's CIP. So the boiler, we currently have 2 units there. They're roughly about 25 years old. They're old and efficient. They are up on their inspections, and they are working, but they are incredibly inefficient. We use this to heat the building during the season so that it's somewhat comfortable in there. Estimated cost to replace the 2 boilers is roughly $250,000. That's something that needs to be done relatively soon. The chiller barrel down in the basement, it's exceeded its useful life, but it is still in operational condition. It was installed in the 1980s. The brine runs through the ammonia system to chill, and the brine is sent out to the concrete floor that chills and makes the ice. The brine is a calcium chloride mixture, so basically salt water. Salt water is pretty corrosive, as you know, just from anything around your house or anything with salt, steel pipes or the materials around it. Future replacement should include consideration of switching from brine to glycol. So if we do switch out the entire system, we should get away from the brine and move to a glycol or some other system. They're a little bit more efficient, but they're not really supporting a lot of these older systems anymore either. Switching to glycol will protect future investments with less corrosive substance, such as other components. So the cost to replace the chiller barrel and the ammonia system in this picture here is about $287,000 is what we're looking at. And you can kind of see, I'm going to see if I can kind of zoom in a little bit here, but you can see from the picture kind of what the brine does to metallic surfaces. So I don't remember exactly what this was that Tyler was telling me, but You can see the whole ends where it would screw into whatever component it was kind of deteriorated and eventually just snapped off, so. The brine is corrosive, and it does a number on some of the system components down there. All right. That particular part? That was in the 80s.
And that's from the ammonia system, and that was the pressure relief off the ammonia, so that's what caused the leak a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago.
All right, next thing that we're looking at is rebuilding the compressors. We have 2 units right now. We split them during the season, so 1 unit runs the first half, the second unit runs the second half. One of the compressors was rebuilt in about 2015. The units should be rebuilt should be reconditioned every 5 years and rebuilt every 10 years. So if there's a plan moving forward that Tyler has, that every 5 years, one will be rebuilt, one will be reconditioned, and another 5 years, one will be rebuilt and one will be reconditioned. That way, during a 10-year period, each compressor pump will be reconditioned and rebuilt. The cost to rebuild 1 unit and recondition 1 unit, so doing 2 of them, is about $50,000. The next big piece of equipment that we use is the cooling tower. This was installed in the 1980s. Its useful life is 20 years, so again, we're past that useful life there. Some of the current issues that we have with it, the gaskets growing bad, the pipes are corroded with mineral deposits. The stand itself needs to be lifted up for to reduce a safety concern with kids or whomever climbing on that thing, but also to get a better flow from the materials. It's gravity fed. And if you lift it up a little bit, you get a better flow going back into the building. Replacing the gaskets alone is roughly the cost of a new tower, and the cost to replace this tower with a new tower is roughly $135,000. So the concrete floor and supply return system, we talked about that a little bit earlier. The concrete floor that we have in there right now is the original floor from 1932. There were some repairs made to it a while ago with some of the header pipes and supply return pipes. The concrete itself is in good shape. The steel piping that's in the concrete, we're not so sure about because of the amount of corrosive brine that goes through them. Under the concrete slab, so if we were to replace the concrete, one of the issues that we're not sure of what we'd have to deal with is it's either cork or asbestos underneath of it that insulates it. If it's cork, it won't be that big of a deal to cut into it and fix it, but if it's asbestos, once we start cutting into it, you get into a whole other world of safety hazards and environmental remediation. There are a couple of options to build a new floor. You can just put a new floor on top of the existing concrete and kind of lift everything up, including the stands, the boards, everything. This really needs to be done in coordination with a chiller barrel. So whatever option we choose on the chiller, we need to kind of partner these two together because you don't want to have one new piece of system with an older piece of system that didn't have glycol in it or couldn't handle glycol. So depending on the option that we're looking at to handle the concrete floor, it could be upwards of about $500,000 or more. They do have rollout systems. You kind of roll out a mat, so to say, and you put a little bit of sand on top of it, and then you freeze and make ice that way. That's not ideal necessarily, but I guess it is an option. So some of the other conditions we have when we start looking at updating the Polar again was built in 1939. There are certain components of it that's not up to code, so as we kind of peel the layer of the onion, we'll find another issue that we may have to address. If we start doing too much of the work, a lot of the Polar or a lot of the ice arenas nowadays have to move all of their ice making things, technical term. They have to move it out of the basement. Basically, we'd have to move everything outside and build an extra room. What is that called, Tyler? The room downstairs. Ice plant, thank you, ice plant, yeah. So to bring it up to code, we'd have to move the ice plant outside, we'd have to build up a new room, bring everything out of the basement and put it outside. And like I mentioned, there's other issues that we'll have to bring up to code as well, electrical, fire, et cetera. Just to kind of give you an example here. So this is the basement where the ice plant is right now, because there's ammonia in there, as we fix some of these components, we'd probably have to seal these off because these go right into the bleachers. And should there be a bad enough ammonia leak, they could get up into the stands, which could have people in it during an event. So a lot of little items that we would have to take into consideration as we're doing some of these bigger items. So that's kind of the system itself. So a lot of the pieces that we're working with the Polar right now are either original from when it was built, or they were last upgraded in the 80s, and it's past the useful life. So that's where a lot of our issues are coming. The material or the mechanical side of everything is just old, outdated, and kind of wearing out. But they're not necessarily cheap fixes, as we kind of went over a little bit. We're trying to find some different options for some funding, but the Polar, like all parks areas, are supported by general fund money, and that's kind of tight to begin with as well. So Tyler's got a plan for a couple of things. There's some more Band-Aids we can throw at it, but long-term, in the more immediate future, we need to kind of start really looking at how we're gonna handle all these bigger components and what we're gonna do with it moving forward, so. So before I get on to the concession stand, are there any questions just on some of that stuff?
Of these things that you've talked about, what's the biggest priority right now to keep it running?
Director Perry, you wanna come up? I would say, from my own opinion, that it's kind of all at the same priority point at this point.
Yeah. If you get into the chiller barrel, the floor's gotta be done. It's all gotta be done at the same time. If you're switching over from the brine system to glycol, they both have to be done at the same time. You'll never get the brine out of one or the other if you were to try to do one or the other. It'll just contaminate the glycol. So really, the biggest priority, like I said, the fix that we put into the system to fix the brine leak, it's a Band-Aid. That brine got outside of the pipes, so it's gonna start to corrode the pipes even more from the outside in, and that's gonna probably cause more leaks down the road.
How operational are we right now?
Right now, 100%.
Is that right now?
Yep. We haven't had to add brine to the system since we put that leak stop in. So, knock on wood, it's operational.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Are there grants out there that kind of we're looking at for historical buildings, I don't know. There seems like a lot, and it's very costly, but yet it's a historical, beautiful building, so I don't know.
So most historical grants focus more on the facades of structures, not the mechanical aspects of it. Could there be a DNR grant? Possibly, but I don't think they typically fund maintenance type of activities either. They may fund something brand new, but I don't know, there's just not a lot of, I haven't seen anything, and we're always looking for grants in engineering, so if there's something out there, we would find it, but I would say there's just not a lot right now.
I have a few questions. First of all, you mentioned we had an ammonia leak. Was there an alarm system that notified participants in the building of a leak? Do we have an alarm system?
We have an alarm system. I'm going to let Director Perrin or Fire Chief Miller come on up and handle that one. They know a little bit more about it. You can rock, paper, scissors for which one comes up if you want.
We're debating who would be best for this.
I lost.
Oh, just kidding. There is an alarm system for it, and it does monitor it, but at the same time, it didn't alert everybody that was occupying the place at the time of the leak. The hockey team was in the shower room. They had music playing, and they did not hear it. So we were lucky that they were transitioning out of the building as it was, and they were a little surprised when they finally left the locker room and the music to hear the alarm. So it is alarmed, but it would be a good idea to have it outside the building. When there's an ammonia leak, it is searching for moisture, and a lot of that ammonia was actually going towards the locker room where there was very humid with the showers. So, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Welcome.
A few more questions. Tyler, you mentioned our parts are significantly beyond end of life, or our chillers, compressors, cooling tower. Tell me about the availability to get parts to fix those. Is there availability? As someone who works in a local ice rink here in town, I know that we cannot get parts for our system, which is not nearly the age that this system is.
We have Associated Refrigeration come up yearly, and he does our maintenance down there in that room on the ammonia systems and on the compressors. It's yearly startup. He comes up and we actually stock most parts to rebuild right in the basement there. And when he leaves, he makes sure he orders more parts. Lead times are, like anything else right now, going up. But we've got typically spare parts down there for that stuff.
Do we currently have a maintenance contract or just a once a year
He's
contract?
on, I mean, startup, he comes up, we schedule it out for startup, and then anytime we have a question, we call him. There's no actual maintenance contract with him. We just call him up and he makes the trip up.
Okay. Tyler, or Director Perrin, on your, on the estimates here, I noted 500K for the cement floor. Is that just the floor, or is that the floor and the piping?
We haven't looked into all the details. That's basically a verbal from him on what he would think it would cost. We'd need a study
That
on
might
what it
be,
would cost to demo that out and rebuild.
that might be worth looking into. In 1995, to replace a system here in town, it cost about 1.5 million to do flooring and piping, to do a system. So it might be worth looking into. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Miller?
Who took care of the ammonia leak? Was it the company?
He was actually here already, working on stuff, and then found that larger problem, yes.
What was the cost of that?
I do not have the invoice on that yet.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
And
City
just as a
Manager?
note, when we do have an ammonia leak, fire department gets dispatched to the Polar and they handle the hazard side of it. Alrighty, so we'll get into the concession real quick. So as the commission's been aware, we've had this concession project kind of lingering for a while there. For the ones that aren't aware, back in about 2018, 2019, I think it was 2019, there was a contract that was put in place between the city and the Eagles organization, the Sioux Eagles organization, and essentially said that the Eagles would buy a new hood for the concession stand and the city would install it. And I think at the time of those contract negotiations, you know, it was about $30,000 to install the hood. And the Eagles had committed to buy the hood, which was about $7,000. One reason or another, it was before my time I got here, but the Eagles ended up buying the hood without any real engineering work, any measurements or anything of that nature. And the hood just literally showed up on a trailer outside of DBW or Parks. So trying to fit the hood into the space that's down in the concession stand, we bid it out twice. First bid came back at $80,000. At that time, we came back to the commission, asked for a budget amendment. We bid it out again, and that price came back at $120,000. After that, we kind of scrapped that idea. We did start looking at hoodless equipment for the space. It seemed promising at the time, but as Tyler got a hold of the different vendors, they came out on site and they said that they wouldn't really work for that type of space either. So Tyler kept doing some research, Rick Parent kept doing some research, kind of determined that we really need to do some kind of engineering work to determine what the space needs and how that hood would actually fit. It's a mechanical engineer that we need, not necessarily a civil engineer, so we can't hand it off to Dave necessarily, but there needs to be some mechanical engineering work done to the space to make sure that the hood is right, or we at least find out what kind of hood we need in that system. So Tyler's working on an RFP for engineering plans. Once we secure an engineer, they'll design the space, taking into consideration the hood that we already have. The budget that we do currently have for it is about $80,000. There is an idea that maybe with the right engineering design and the right plan, the cost could come down a little bit, but I wouldn't necessarily hold your breath for that one. Again, as we address other projects in the Polar, there are other items that we'll need to address in the concession stand. More so fire and electrical code issues, just to kind of highlight one of the issues. In the picture on the left, kind of in the middle, you can see a multiple outlet plugged into a two-prong outlet. You can see there's a heating pad, a popcorn machine, a couple other things in there. And it overloaded the system, and the right side of the picture is the result of that six-prong after it's been used for a while. So you can see the kind of the char marks on the side and the bottom left there. So the electrical system needs to be upgraded too, but it also needs to take into some consideration that it needs to be designed if it's gonna be a working concession, and there needs to be more outlets in there, and you can't just have extension cords and all that fun stuff running that kind of equipment, so that's kind of where we're at. We're working on the RFP for the engineering plans. We'll get that out. We'll get somebody on board here. They'll design it, taking into consideration the hood we have, and then we'll move forward that way. But there's been a lot of options. There's been a lot of talk about this and trying to figure out a low-cost option and how we can move forward with it. But the hoodless equipment, unfortunately, doesn't sound like it's gonna work out for us, so. So is there any questions on the hood?
Any questions for city manager, Commissioner Habusta?
What revenue does the city see from the concessions?
I don't know off the top of my head. There is, the contract has it that the Eagles pay us a rent fare, and then they keep the proceeds, correct? Yeah.
That or less.
A year or a month? A year, right?
A year.
Yeah.
I think it's under $700 a month, operating month.
Yeah. And then we do get a portion of the ticket sales. I don't remember what that is off the top of my head either, but the concession stand itself is about, direct appearance, about $5,000 a year.
Any other questions? Commissioner Miller?
I have a comment.
Sure.
I'd like to thank the city manager for the update on it. I know I've called you many times about different things. And even though the Sioux Eagles use the concession stand, whatever, we have to remember that that's a historic, that's our building. That's the building for Sault Ste. Marie. So if you take the Sioux Eagles, the Hiawatha Skating Club, you take them all out of the equation, whatever, we have to do whatever we can to keep that building safe for everyone to use and make sure it's upkept. From your presentation tonight, it just looks like a lot of money, lots of it. So I guess we can just try to get money wherever we can to fix whatever we can.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to lose the Sioux Eagles. We don't want to lose the Hiawatha Skating Club or any other hockey programs that are there. But it's expensive. But it's a public service to the people that live here, so we have to keep that in mind too. Thank you for your update.
Thanks, Commissioner, and to some of the questions that were asked, certainly we have goal setting coming up and budget planning sessions as well, so, and we'll work on capital improvement plans. So. Moving on, F, communications, number 2, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next is a request from the Chippewa County Historical Society and some of its members of the Historic Structures Committee. I'm not sure who's going to speak. Mary June, come on up, Mary June.
Good evening, Mary.
Good evening. Okay. Thank you for allowing us to speak about the historic Water Street buildings. For those who aren't familiar with me, I'm Mary June. I'm the chair of the Historic Structures Committee. I also happen to be Chair of the Historic Development Commission, and I'm a board member at the Chippewa County Historical Society. Let's see. I just have a few comments, and then I'm hoping you'll have questions. I hope you were able to look over the material we sent you with background on the historic homes. I know there's some new faces here, and you may not be that familiar with the homes. Let's see, the buildings create a reason for tourists to remain in Sault Ste. Marie, providing an economic benefit to city businesses. Group tourism, such as cruise ships, are a growing industry and rely on a variety of venues, the homes being one of them. When the city received land from the estate of George Kemp in the 1950s, the city of Sault Ste. Marie took on the responsibility for the development of the property, which is now occupied by the historic homes, the marina, and the Valley Camp, and also portions of the Sioux Locks boat tours. The city has historically funded restoration and operation of these buildings. In particular, over the last 20 years, a lot of progress has been made, and originally just the Johnson House was open, and since then the Berga and Kemp houses or buildings were also open, and a portion of the Schoolcraft building. We promote the Sioux as the oldest city in Michigan, and the homes are important survivors of that legacy. We advertise that we started in 1668, and a number of things happened before these homes were built, but these are sort of some of our last surviving buildings. The community's pride and history is reflected in these buildings, and they become a legacy for the city. The funding for the buildings is time sensitive, as the cruise ship operators and the Convention and Visitors Bureau need opening and closing information immediately for their advertising. We respectfully request that the city fund the opening of these buildings with a proposed schedule, including contracted services. And I'm hoping you have some questions for me.
Thanks, Mary. Any commissioners have any questions on the information that was presented to us, or any of the financials, or on the request? City Manager, I don't know if you have any comments or thoughts on it?
I'm gonna say the financials are still being maybe tweaked a little bit. They're not totally, cemented in. But there would be a little raise probably with the salary item line, because minimum wage has gone up, and we'll also be open for a few more cruises this year. And then, of course, with the slightly extended season because of the cruise ships. Normally, regular hours are Engineers Day, which is the last Friday in June, to Labor Day. And we usually in the past, we've operated 7 days a week, about 5 hours a day. This year, we're proposing to drop down to 5 days a week, but 5 hours. However, if there's a cruise ship in town scheduled, we'll be open on a Monday or Tuesday, like I said, if a cruise ship is in town. And we would accept paying customers too.
Sure, Commissioner Boswell-Rath.
What would the hours be?
They have been 12 noon until 5 p.m.
Okay, 12 to 5.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
And I think, City Manager, if you could outline, so last year, when they came forward, we had funding that was offered from the Osborne Operating Fund that
Correct, so,
is,
little background, so the historic homes, which includes a management agreement as well as an agreement with Chippewa County Historical Society for docents and exhibits, has typically been paid out of the general fund. Last year, I don't remember exactly when, but at one point the homes were closed because of COVID. The way our fiscal year runs, They didn't open the following summer, and then last year during the budget, I recommended not funding them because of some of the financial challenges we had within the general fund. So, being that the Osborne Trust does support certain endeavors that are historical or cultural related to the city, there was a request made to the Historical Development Commission, which was concurred by the city commission, to fund the operations for last summer, starting July 1st, and then through this fiscal year. So the request from the Historical Society is to ensure that there's funds budgeted for the opening of the homes for this year. 2023 or 2023, the budget that's in your agenda packet, the Excel sheet, outlines some of the revenues that come in as well as the expenses. And the end of the day, the contribution from the city out of the general fund is roughly about $28,600 they'd be looking for 2023. There is a possibility of going back to the Historic Development Commission to see if they would support it for one more year. Last year, when we went to the HDC, the board was supportive of funding it for last year, but they said that you should try to find a different revenue source for it, as it's not really a sustainable model to continue to go to a trust fund that's living off of interest for something that's ongoing maintenance and operations. So we can make the request back to the HDC to see if there's any wiggle room there. I will just be frank with the commission. I'm not sure if we'll have a lot of wiggle room in the general fund again. I know it's not a lot of money in our whole grand scheme of everything, but when we've got other equipment and other departments that we need to consider purchasing, like in the fire department or the police department, $30,000 adds up. So I would be hesitant to recommend funding the operations of the homes again, but if there's a direction from the commission, then we will so pursue that direction.
Commissioner Habusta.
I'd just like to comment, we talk about investments in our community. I think the historical homes do provide investment in our community. I've watched my son, who was part of the camps that have been held at the historical homes, really gain excitement in his community and the history of his community because of the events and being able to spend time at the historical homes. So we just talked about one historical building, and now we're talking about several others. I think they are also an investment in our community that we need to look at how we can make that investment available to our community members.
Next Commissioner, Commissioner Bauer.
Well, the buildings are in fact ours, and we have invested in them and in their upkeep in the physical plant, and specifically most recently, I think the Barriga House and continually the Schoolcraft House. But I mean, if we don't spend the money to keep them open, then, you know, what did we even do it for, really? Maybe we can ask the HDC, you know, to put forth a portion of what they did a year ago, and then maybe we could meet them the rest of the way, and hopefully this will be hopefully maybe it'll be a good year for tourism as far as the historic homes are concerned. There's no way that they're gonna make this kind of money that they need to, you know, to sustain it and be profitable, but that's not really what it's all about, right? I do know that, excuse me, a lot of people who come to my place, once they see the locks, because how long does it really take to view the locks unless you're here on Engineers Day specifically, and then they ask where to go, and I always send them there, and I send them to the Valley Camp, and it's definitely a place where tourists like to go. People have come back to me, oh yeah, thanks for sending me down there, it was really interesting, and et cetera, et cetera. 1668, right? I mean, we've got the history, and if we don't use it to our advantage, then, you know, we gotta wonder even, you know, what our identity is as a community. I mean, you can't invest everything in the past, I get that, but on the other hand, you have to acknowledge it, and you have to do your best to utilize it when you've got that card in your hand, right? So, anyway, I guess what I'm saying is that maybe we can, maybe together we can approach the HDC and see if they can come up with anything, and then go from there and see how much we need to and can come up with to solve that situation.
Thanks, Commissioner. Anybody else have any comments? I agree wholeheartedly with both of you. It's a part of our history, and we do own the buildings. And I know the docents have done a great job through the years, and sometimes unpaid, and the buildings have been, I don't want to say neglected, but they do need some work. We pride ourselves on being the town where Michigan was born, so, and I think that right now we're poised, especially with the location, with the cruise ships coming through. We had over 40 last year and set to do more. I think we need to capitalize on that. This is one part of the mix of historical things that they can do in the area, so I think there's got to be a way, long-term, maybe we have to look at collaboration with some of the historical groups. I don't know, maybe somebody will want to take ownership someday, and you know, we can find some other sources. I don't know what the answer is. Some would say that the city probably isn't the right venue, or the right owner of a historical property, maybe a nonprofit. They could look at other sources, but I think that's a longer-term look. But for now, I agree that we need to look for sources of money to keep it going.
Oh, one comment I'll
Sure.
make, though,
Sure, Mary.
is that some of the improvements, or most of the improvements that have been made over the last 20 years on the homes, a lot of that money came from the Osborne Trust.
Mhm.
And so if you spend it for the one thing, it's not going to be there for the other. So
Right.
just, it's not a bottomless.
Sure. So would you like us to make a motion to refer it back to administration to look for the money from Commissioner Bauer? You had
Yes,
verbiage.
well, I was just gonna say, so moved that we refer this back to the administration.
Okay.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. F Communications, item number 3, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next is Ken Hopper and Willa Hopper. She's coming up with the Outhouse Consortium. Mr. Hopper has a kind of a presentation, some information he wants to share with the commission. Okay, chime in as we go
I've passed out a
along.
packet, you guys should have received a packet.
Good evening, Ken.
Lovely logo on it. And I could put,
Any way we can put it on there for the,
yeah,
Public?
I have some highlights that I could.
Sure.
If you have a way for me to put an HDMI.
You got a jump drive? Oh, you can do that? That works.
Apologize. I'm taller.
In the front.
Sorry, Bonnie.
you need one?
I can talk as a. Did I give you guys a chance to review the packet?
No pressure.
Good?
It matches.
All right.
Okay. This is our logo for the Outhouse Consortium. We're a local not-for-profit, considered a 501c3 in the eyes of the IRS. So we are legitimate, and you can donate to us. Not begging for anything right now, but a few years ago, I was here, there was different faces here, and I wanted to take an opportunity to kind of update everybody as to where we were, where we are now, without taking up too much time. So, I don't even know what my first slide is. This is a good The area we're talking about, and this is draft form, and this is my squiggly lines. So this is not a professional map rendering. So when I was here years ago, what I talked about is kind of, it was after our group had established our priorities. So we had listed 6 priorities, and what came to the top of that list of priorities was the Ashman Creek area. Number 1, because it was within the city limits. Number 2, because it seemed like it was very approachable and something that our group thought that we could handle. And what we've done, that when we first started, we came to a city commission meeting, and it was deemed that we could go ahead and operate within the boundaries of this Ashman Creek area under an existing memorandum of understanding that was established with Lake Superior State University. At that time, it was led by Dr. Greg Zimmerman, and that was to establish the 2 trails that are, there's still existing loops that have kind of grown over, and there's these faded interpretive signs back there, but the 2 towards the north, the 2 loops that are in red, that was a trail he had. And then when we came to commission years ago and said, you know, we wanted to work in this area, they said, go ahead and go off that memorandum of understanding. So over the last few years, what we have consciously done is tried to establish ourselves in the community and surrounding community and get some money into our coffers so we can position ourselves to make decisions. So we've done that. We've been pretty successful in our partnerships over the last few years. You know, we've partnered with the city. You know, we've done some work over on Voyager Island to upkeep that and maintain that. We've worked with Bay Mills Indian Community, Bay Mills Community College to work on some trails out there. What we're looking to do now, and it just seems like the timing is right. We've come to a point where, okay, we've done some trails, that trail behind Buffalo Wild Wings. We're at a point, we understand that our group of volunteers won't achieve the level that we need to have this project done correctly. So we will need to enlist some professionals. So right now we have enough money in our coffers, and we approached some consultants and some professionals that this is what they do, they build trails. So they gave us some quotes, and you know, we've got a board of 8 people, and surprisingly enough, these 8 people came to an agreement that they are willing to separate themselves from the money that they have raised over the last number of years to get to a point. You know, we did 7 Bridges, 7 Brews over the last however many years. The average 200 people come to that every year, and that highlights our downtown and the uniqueness of our downtown. They cross over all 7 bridges that go through the canal. We've been doing lantern-lit snowshoe hikes all over the eastern Upper Peninsula for the last 3 or 4 years. We just did one on a piece of property. If you look where Buffalo Wild Wings is, kind of this area here, this trail right here in blue, we went through there, and it's easier in the winter to make a trail because you don't really have to do a lot of groundwork. You can make a snowshoe trail basically anywhere. So what happened with that is we approached a private company that owned 43 acres there and asked them if they'd be interested in donating. And this took a number of years to go through, but we roped in Little Traverse Conservancy, and they've become really great partners with us. They said, go ahead and pass the ball up to us. We will help you with that. So over the last 2 months, that 43 acres was donated to Little Traverse Conservancy. We have an agreement with them for easements, and the idea is that that 43 acres abuts city property that is part of the larger system. So we've already got the 43 acres there. It could tie into the existing trail that we've got. The idea of this larger system is that it serves as a hub system where you've got mountain biking, you've got hiking. At all the 6 trailheads located around, you know, you've got one going to the Algonquin area, you've got Lake State, that they're going to be a great partner, not only for us as a community, but for themselves for recruitment and retention purposes. If you can imagine telling students that they'll have a hiking and mountain biking system out right outside their back door, then I think things kind of fall in line after that. And we're working with the Convention and Visitors Bureau on the grant that they received with the I-500 track, talking with Dave Thomas and the I-500 committee about doing more than just the I-500 one weekend of the year, using that area for some other things. Ultimately, as you look through this, and I don't want to read it for you guys, but we've done a lot of partnerships, we've raised some money, and we've got an awesome group of people that are willing to take all the money that we've got and put it into some conceptual drawings so that we can have something tangible to bring back to the community so that the community can back it and get behind this idea of what might be a pretty nice destination for people to come to and a pretty valuable asset for residents. So the ask from the city is, with the city property that ties into this, we don't want to go off an old memorandum of understanding that doesn't even mention our group's name. And we've taken a number of years to establish ourselves in the community, so our ask is from the city, before we take our funds and present it to a consulting group, we would like assurances that we would be able to move forward on said property, whether that is in the form of a lease or an agreement with Little Traverse Conservancy or whatever is deemed necessary for this piece of property. That's what we're looking for to come out of tonight's meeting. And I can speak to it. I live it, so if you got any questions, fire away. And while you're doing that, I'll show some pretty pictures. We did pay for a local consultant to come in and do some initial conceptual design work to look at the topography of the area. You've got a lot of rolling topography there. And in speaking with administration, the feeling is that a lot of the land is undevelopable. What we're looking to do is connect everything from Project Playground, I-500 track, Buffalo Wild Wings, under the highway, make all these trailheads around this area and just have this be the start. This is the start of a larger trail system that will spread out to all the city parks. We've talked with members of Sioux Tribe about utilizing them, tying in with the Big Bear Trail, tying in with the Methodist Mission, and connecting over to Harvey and Rotary Park, and even extending under the highway as far as Sherman Park. But right now, I know this is a grander vision, but right now we're focusing on just the Ashman Creek area and letting the rest of our plans be known after we can get that established. And that's a phased project right now too. And we'll know more after we get talking with our consultants. So any questions from you guys?
Thanks, Ken. Any questions for him? City Manager, do you have any comments?
No, so I guess just kind of looking for direction from the commission again. I mean, if this is something that interests you and you would like us to pursue in partnership with Ken, look for another motion to recommend or refer back to administration, and we'll work with Ken and figure out what we can and can't do. I would just say that looking at the property, so Bonnie, you want to throw up the map really quick? So this is the property that we're referring to. So here's the, Tractor Supply, what is that?
That'd be
Or Buffalo Wild Wings, sorry.
Kohl's and
Yeah.
Buffalo Wild Wings.
So they just purchased and put it into Conservancy, this particular property. A lot of this property over here is ours. I think this one may not be. Yeah, that one is
There's a
not.
40 that's,
Yeah, but a lot of this property is city-owned property over here. And the reason why we kind of say it's not developable is the topography has a lot of challenges that would come with it. But in addition to that, the wetlands that kind of surround the area. Director Freeman and I have been on a hunt for some developable property, and we thought we had one, but it turned out it was all wetlands. And after talking to Eagle about what you can do and can't do with wetlands, it's a kind of a dead end on it. So, being that this property has a lot of hills, a lot of cuts into it, and then that it's surrounded primarily by wetlands, I do think it would be a good use if we can help build out that kind of an asset for the community. There's some more work that we'd have to do. I think Ken and I talked about double checking FAA with the airport and stuff of that nature, but I do think it's a worthwhile endeavor to move forward with.
Commissioner Boswell-Strath.
You know, I'd be all over this. Just a quick question, how long is the trail, like, how long would it be ideally, like the whole thing? Do you know, like, roughly?
I know they just did a project in Petoskey in a much smaller area, and I think they had mixed modes of transportation in there too. And that could be another source, right, MDOT, because we are connecting at different areas of town, but they had over 8 miles within a very small area. We're looking at more than that.
Nice.
Combined trail,
Okay.
and then, yeah.
Yeah, I would be in full support of this. I think this not only is good for the city, the college, university, mental health. Let's talk about that for a minute, you know, biking, walking, trails. Everybody loves the UP for the natural beauty and whatnot. This is us taking advantage of all of that, and you guys are doing amazing work, and I've seen what you can do, so any way that the city can help with that, I would be in full support of.
In the
Is that your
packet,
motion?
That's my motion.
It has been,
I support that. If that's a motion, I support
it
that.
has been moved and supported to refer it back to the city administration to negotiate with Outhouse Consortium. Any other questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you very much, Ken, for all that you do.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Okay, moving to F Communications, number 4, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for a presentation is Sherry Crutch, Executive Director of Rena Recycling and Resource Recovery.
Hello.
Good evening, Sherry.
Hi. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to talk with you today. I'm going to go ahead and read. So, hi, I'm Sherry Krusch.
If you could speak into the microphone, please. I think
sorry.
Bonnie will be running around the corner in a minute. Thank you.
I'm Sherry Krusch. I'm the Executive Director of Rena Recycling and Resource Recovery, and we're a brand-new nonprofit right here in Sault Ste. Marie. We're working in collaboration with Northern Transitions, and we're renting our warehouse space from them at 401 Fort Street. And our thanks to them for their support. Rena Recycling's mission is to provide the Eastern Upper Peninsula with a much-needed recycling service for electronics and other consumer goods, while also protecting our environment by keeping toxic wastes out of landfills and less appropriate places like forests, rivers, and lakes. We will promote a circular economy here in Michigan by recovering valuable resources and by educating children and adults about the vital importance of reducing, reusing, repurposing, and recycling. The focus of our recycling efforts is mainly on collecting electronics, including computers, printers, and other accessories, cell phones and tablets, stereo equipment. We also take small appliances, tools, scrap metal. There will be a small fee to accept CRT, cathode ray tube televisions, and monitors. We're looking into the feasibility of other items also, such as alkaline batteries, polystyrene foam, and number 7 plastics. Rena Recycling is working towards being a licensed recycler with the Eagle Electronics Recycling Program. We will follow data sanitization requirements to assure the proper end-of-life management of any data that might be in the equipment that we collect. We will also be working closely with downstream companies that have national electronics recycling certifications, and our goal is to become a certified recycler also. This will assure that the material we collect and/or recycle is properly managed and not just put in a container and shipped to some place where it might not be recycled in a manner that meets established sustainability procedures. When we achieve our goal of being a licensed and certified electronics recycler, we will be the only such facility in the Upper Peninsula. Recycling keeps usable and hazardous materials out of landfills or prevents them from being dumped elsewhere, like out in the back 40 or the woods. Old CRT televisions and monitors contain between 2 and 6 pounds of lead and other toxic materials like mercury. The circuit boards in electronics and in so many other electrical products also contain heavy metals plus a whole host of hazardous chemicals. If these products are not disposed of improperly, those toxins will end up in the soil and the water. Since 2019, Michigan's recycling record has improved by 35%. from about 14% to about 19%, but that's not great. We're still lagging behind the national average of about 32%. Rainer Recycling wants to help our area do our part to improve the recycling rate here, while also protecting the natural beauty of our Upper Peninsula home. And I do have something if you want to hand these around. This is going to be the what we take, and our hours are going to be starting in March, Saturday, from every Saturday 2 to 5 p.m. And then if somebody has anything at other times, if those hours are not convenient, they can call the number and we'll meet them at the collection center. Or maybe for seniors and disabled people, we could probably do pickups also. And for businesses, we're thinking about trying to end, here's some business cards. And I guess I'm just bringing this to your attention.
Thank you, Sherry. Is there anybody that has any questions? So starting in March, it'll be open from 2 to 5 every Saturday, and it looks like is drop-off is
people-
free of charge unless you have a
Unless the
CRT
CRT
tube?
TV, yeah, that costs us to process.
Okay.
Eagle, we'll be working with Eagle. They'll be coming through and picking stuff up from us. We'll also be taking things to Patnos. They're a certified recycler. And then also, we're looking for other outlets. We have a place down in Grand Rapids that'll take polystyrene, so if anyone's going to Grand Rapids and, wants to load their car with a little bit of styrofoam, please call me.
Well, thank you very much for the information. I know that we quite often hear or see people wondering where they can toss their old TV or some of their electronics.
Back
so
in
this is-
October, they had a electronics drop-off, and I went there to volunteer, and they filled a whole semi-truck and there were a couple Gaylords left over that I'm actually working my way through right now. So basically what we do is dismantle, and we try to let as little go to the landfill as possible, and none would be the goal, so.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And
Okay, yep,
all set?
thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
And we'll move into item G, which is business items. Number 1, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next, or first of all, up next for commission consideration is a request to approve a 3-year contract with Wolverine Fireworks Display out of Coquitlam, Michigan for the annual 4th of July fireworks. Presented to the commission is a proposal and contract for the 3 years. The contract would be locked in at $20,000 a year for the next 3 years. So we look for a motion to approve the proposal as presented.
Thanks, City Manager. Anybody have any questions or comments? I think this is the company we've been dealing with for a long time, isn't it?
Correct.
Okay. Commissioner Miller.
Yeah, I think we have been dealing with this company for a long time, and with the exception of a little glitch during the
COVID, yeah.
COVID problem, I think they've really done a good job for us. This might be a little out of the realm of what we're talking about, but I got to watch the fireworks for the start of Bon Sioux the other night, and I was amazed at how wonderful they were. I'd like to check into that and see who put those on for them before we sign any contracts with Wolverine. Even though they've done a good job for us, those fireworks from Bon Sioux were amazing.
I guarantee they weren't $20,000.
No, I'm not, maybe the first half hour of them were, but they were amazing. So, I mean, if someone's gonna make a motion to sign the contract with Wolverine, I'll vote yes, but I sure would like to know who put those on for Bon Sioux. I really would.
Certainly, they've been around for a long time, and I think they've been a good partner, City of Sault Ste. Marie, and I know that, wasn't long ago, they were half of that price, but things have gone up in price quite a bit, and I think, funny enough, if you look back at some of the citizen surveys that we've taken in the city, people have rated fireworks as one of their number 1 likes that the City of Sault Ste. Marie does, so. Is there a motion?
I have another question.
Sure, Commissioner Miller.
It says the dollar amount's $20,000, and you're right, it wasn't too many years ago, I remember it was only 10, whatever. One of the sororities or fraternities from Lake State, they do their, where they collect money for the fire, I mean, how much do they contribute, or?
I don't believe they do that anymore. I think Robin said before that it was Tau Kappa Epsilon out of LSSU, and it used to be part of their Tub Push
Yeah,
fundraiser, but
been a long time.
Right, I
yeah,
remember it, I
a lot of
remember.
a lot of those fundings go to St. Jude's now.
Oh, very nice, okay, thank you.
Maybe you can start one. Commissioner Rubenstein, would you like to make a motion?
Motion to accept the proposal from Wolverine Fireworks Display Inc. of, I'm gonna butcher this, Kawakulin, Michigan? Kakalin, Michigan for the annual 4th of July fireworks show for the 2023, 2024, and 2025.
Support.
Has been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor of the motion, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. G, business items number 2, City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next for commission consideration is a request for a contract amendment with Donahue Services for some work needed to round out our application with Eagle for some improvements to the wastewater treatment plant. So this kind of comes on the heels of the presentation we gave the commission during the last meeting with the wastewater treatment plant. This contract amendment we have kind of worked out with Donahue. They were selected through us through our quality-based selection process, which is a requirement of Eagle and the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. But the amendment is gonna help carry our information through to Eagle. It is kind of a lengthy and complicated process that staff doesn't necessarily have time. I think when we first started going down this path, we thought it would be a little bit easier and we'd be able to handle it internally, but that's not necessarily the case. So there's 2 motions, motion to amend the project budget by $96,500 and a motion to amend, or excuse me, a motion to approve the contract amendment as presented.
Thank you, City Manager. Any questions or comments on this item? Commissioner Busa.
Yeah, City Manager Chapman, just want to, as we look at this as a significant amendment to this, has this company met its obligations on time in the first part of the contract, which had already been approved? Were they on
Correct.
time with each
Yes.
aspect?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, they have.
Thanks, Commissioner. I guess I'll make a couple, did you rely on? Commissioner Barr.
I was just wondering what exactly we expect to get for the extra $96,000, as that is a lot of money.
So what the deliverables for this particular request would be, and I'm gonna have Mr. Boyle start walking up to the mic here. So there's a couple of things. The biggest thing is they are going to assist us in requesting our funding through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. And now the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, they were super funded this year, and they've got a big program where communities that can qualify can have a large portion of their, what's typically loans forgiven. So loans forgiveness for next year is anticipated to be about
We're hoping 50%.
50%.
For our category.
50%, yes. So what we're requesting, or what we're gonna request from Eagle is kind of everything and then scale back to what we can actually afford. We have to do it that way.
50% of what, then? What would the raw number figure be?
It's about,
So we started off with 35 million. So
Yeah.
we're hoping that we're gonna be somewhere in the 15 million.
right. And so, but that's not necessarily, so what the program has us do through Eagle is you have to kind of shoot for the moon and then scale back. So if we're anticipating 50% forgiveness, and let's say, because I think it maxes out at 15 million, the max is 15 million. So if we write an application for 30, then we can scale it back to what we can afford moving forward. If we put in an application for, let's say, 5 million, and we're only gonna get half of that, and then they come back and they say, you're actually eligible for a greater amount of money, they won't allow you to upscale the project. So we kind of have to ask for everything in anticipation of kind of whittling it down a little bit. So what this or what this amendment is gonna do is they're gonna assist us in compiling that information to meet the deadlines. There's some light engineering work that has to happen in order to finish out the application. But even if we don't apply for the funding, the work product that comes out of this will still be used moving forward with the projects. So it's a project plan.
Yep, it'll be, right.
Yeah,
It'll be
so-
essentially a project plan for everything that we want to do.
Yeah.
This is the document they give you. It's like 35 pages long. There's 33 items in here we have to put in. When we did the small one out here for Water Street, we ended up with, I don't know, 66 pages worth of stuff just for plugging the system here and putting a pump station upstream. So now we're talking about the treatment plant, a number of different projects in the treatment plant and maybe a collection system. So it's going to be quite extensive.
So the output will actually be a plan on what improvements we'll do on a move in the future. And like I said, even if we don't go after this funding, we'll still be able to carry that forward because it's gonna highlight our improvements and how we're gonna do it moving forward.
And we didn't see this coming when we approved the original 30? And this is like 4 times as much.
I think when we originally did it, we were gonna do it internally. But I
Right.
think it just, as we got through that first report, it just ballooned on us. And given the carbide dock moving forward and some of the other projects we have, we didn't necessarily have the capacity to do it.
I have some of the same concerns. Certainly when we hired Donahue, which is a firm we've never used before, never heard of before in Sault Ste. Marie, and I'm sure they're a great firm. I had asked the question if, that by them getting that study, certainly that didn't guarantee that they were gonna get any of the planning work or any of the major work. If we do go forward with the plan, here we are, kind of doing an amendment for triple the amount of the original, study. And to me, at least at our level, they were supposed to come back with several different options that we were able to look at, for wastewater treatment process. And we were presented a few meetings back, one option that was $58 million or something like that. And if you're saying it's a $15 million cap on the grant, I don't think the commission has said, yes, let's go forward with this project. I haven't heard that or seen that yet. And I think I would like a little bit more information. There were also other engineers that bid on it, and obviously they were high in their estimates, but to award a $30,000 study and then just go ahead and do an amendment for a $90,000 addition, which will really have the effect of backing us into having to use them going forward, I would think. I mean, that's typically what happens. The deeper they get into the project, the more economies they have of doing this. So I'm not in favor of it at this point in time. I don't think we have, given that direction that we're gonna go forward with a project this big. I don't know what the impact is gonna be to our water and sewer users. We haven't even looked at those numbers yet. These are things that we need to consider before we go forward with a big project. I know that we're gonna have debt dropping off. I know that we're gonna be, replacing things with the improvements. I know we have to do these improvements. We can't stall or delay, and I know this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity probably, but I'm not ready to go forward on this particular issue. I don't know if anybody has any other comments. Any thoughts? Anybody want to make the motion, recommended motion to amend the project budget, move forward? All right, looks like it dies on the vine at this point. Any other thoughts? Okay. Thank you.
Good.
So we'll move on to G, business items, number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up next is a request from Dial-A-Ride regarding their operations plan and approval of the operating budget for programs year October 1, 2023. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Nolan.
Hello, Commission. Thanks for having me. For those who don't
Welcome.
want, yeah, I know all of you, but for the public, I'm the director at Community Action. We partner with you guys for Dial Ride. 2024 will be our 50th year of that partnership, which is pretty cool. So this is just a normal application that we provide each year that we get basically your blessing for us to apply for the funding under City of Sault Ste. Marie under to fund transportation under federal and state funding. And then also there's local contributions too. So the attachment A is just our basic operations and what we're doing. It's still the same. We haven't changed that. It's going to be, we're still running 7 days a week, our third year of doing that now. We used to be 5 3 years ago, so to move to add weekends now has worked out pretty well for us. We do run the 3 on-demand buses, and we also run 2 routes, one that goes up and down the business spur and one that goes in a loop around town, and those have done very well. A lot of trial and error, I will say, especially on the weekends. We don't do the routes on the weekends anymore, just on-demand. But those have, on the weekdays, those have worked out really well, especially that business spur one that goes up and down on the hour. So that's what attachment A is about. Attachment B is the budget. That hasn't changed expense-wise. There was some CARES money reeled back, so some federal did get lowered. However, we have done our best to, continue to raise funds locally through advertising, through partners with agencies, local agencies on, rider fares and other type revenue. So we've worked on that. And then C is just the resolution that gets signed once it's passed. So.
Thank you very much. City Manager, do you have any comments on
I
it?
do not. So we would
Looks
just
like we
look
have a-
for motion to, a motion to approve the motions as presented.
So it looks like we have 3 fairly lengthy motions. Who likes to read motions? Commissioner Miller. Thanks for volunteering.
Since I'm the liaison to the Dollar Ride.
Good plan.
I think those guys, you've done an amazing job in the last couple of years, and I think it's great.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Your Honor. Motion to accept the operating plan for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2023.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, Commissioner Miller.
Thank you, Your Honor. Motion to approve the proposed budget for Dollar Ride with $415,000 in proposed revenue and $415,000 in expenses for the 2024 fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2023.
Support.
Has been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Commissioner Miller.
Your Honor. Motion to approve a resolution of intent to apply for financial assistance for the fiscal year 2024, which begins October 1st, 2023, under Act 51 of Public Acts of 1951, authorizing an application for state financial assistance and appointing Troy Earls as the transportation coordinator for all public transportation matters.
Support.
Has been moved and supported. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, give me some of your water after that one.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Nolan.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on into G, business items number 4. City Manager Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For commission consideration is the quarterly budget amendments for the period ending December 31st, 2022. Included in your agenda item is a list of the proposed amendments that we are looking for throughout the several of the major funds within the city. If there's any questions, we're happy to entertain them, but we look for a motion to authorize budget revisions as presented.
Thank you, City Manager. Does anybody have any questions? I know that we have the City Finance Director here in the audience, if you have any questions. And certainly is a very long and thorough list. We thank you very much for the detail. So any questions at all on Commissioner Habusta, would you like to make the motion?
Yeah, I motion to adopt the resolution with the sorry, excuse me. Let me try that one again. Oh, it's way up there.
Yeah, sorry, it's really
Sorry,
long.
I was reading all the way through and I Scrolled all the way down to
Yeah.
the bottom. Motion to authorize the budget revisions for the 2022-2023 fiscal year as detailed in the report and attachment.
Support.
So it has been moved and supported to authorize the budget revisions. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Moving on into item H, which is city manager announcements and updates.
Just a couple things for the commission tonight. So one thing that staff's been working on that I'm kind of excited to announce is that we'll be offering a curling clinic this year. Yeah, with Kane's Rink, we were going to try to make it Kane's Curling Corner, but with the ice kind of coming in late, it didn't necessarily happen. So we have some of the rocks that we've rented, and we're going to offer a clinic on Curling 101. The staff has been working with the Curling Club on Sioux, Ontario, and they're willing to come over here and do some free lessons for people that are interested. And then in addition to that, we've got the Sioux Area High School that is going to be using the curling stones as another part of their curriculum as well. So trying something different with the ice rinks. We were hoping that Canes would be a little bit more intact for us this year, but we're going to switch over to Polar, and we're going to make it work this year, and hopefully we'll be back at Canes next year. So one other thing, just be out of the office on vacation on February 17th. Don't call me, Joey. Oh, by the way.
Thanks, City Manager. Do you know, for the curling clinic, are we going to have information on sign up or what times the events will be held?
Yes, yep. They're working on that. I think Trish was wrapping that up last week, and we'll get that stuff out.
Okay. So it'll be on our Facebook page and probably on our webpage.
It'll be on your personal
Any
Facebook.
social media. Yeah, no, sure. All right, any other questions for City Manager? All right, moving on into item I, which is matters presented by the public. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make any comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll move into item J, which is matters presented by the City Commission. City Commissioners have any comments? I do have one announcement. This weekend is the Katie Robinson Memorial Showcase 2023. Started last year, and they had 4 girls teams that came. This year they have 15 girls teams, so they're looking to build on that every year. It's this Friday, February 10th to February 12th. Thank you for the collaboration with the Chippewa County Community Foundation. One of the highlights of the weekend will be on Saturday, February 11th at 7:30 p.m. at Polar Stadium. Everybody come down and see the beautiful building that it is that needs a little bit of repair. And the LSSU Lady Lakers will be playing the Minnesota Golden Gophers, and all 15 teams will get on the ice for photo opportunity before the game. And admission is by donation to the Diane Pepler Resource Center. There's a list of things that they need that's on the Katie Robinson Memorial Showcase Facebook page, and probably is on the Community Foundation page as well. So basics, yeah, basic supplies. And this is a fundraiser for the Katie Robinson Scholarship, and also for the Chippewa County Community Foundation. So certainly everybody come and cheer on your Lady Lakers and give to a good scholarship program. Lady Lakers also play on Saturday, which will be their last home game of the year, and then the ACHA D2 team plays as well. So some really good hockey, and a lot of people coming to town, 15 teams. I don't remember how many hundred people and families that is, but great turnout. So thanks everybody for putting that together, and please attend if you can. Anybody else have any? Sure, Commissioner Miller.
Sure. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that made presentations tonight and brought things to our attention. And it's very nice to see a full crowd here tonight. That's very nice. A lot of times we have these meetings and there's only 4 or 5 people here. And it's very nice that you're all passionate and excited about different things. Thank you so much.
Good point, Commissioner. All right. Seeing no other, Commissioner Bauer.
Your Honor, so move that we adjourn this meeting.
Support.
Been moved and supported to adjourn this meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is